Greetings, Flosstube. It is Friday, April 24th, I think is the date. Not really sure anymore. Quarantine brain, I guess. It is 9:24 a.m. Coming to you from the kind of damp and crappy weather in western Massachusetts today. Everything is going well. This should be a significantly shorter video than the last one I shot because to be honest, I got sidetracked with a particular piece I was working on and haven't done a lot of progress on the whips that I showed in my previous video. But I have some haul, and I'm not sure if you would consider it haul if you forgot you had it. But I had downloaded some patterns off of Etsy, and when I was looking for one, I found, well, actually, they didn't all come from Etsy. I'll show you the patterns later. Some of them did, some of them didn't, but I found some patterns that I had forgotten I had, so I'm not sure if that really counts as new haul. Kind of new to me, but anyway, I think I'll just jump right in. I'll show you the progress. I do have one finished piece, and I just got a little package in the mail that has some fabric haul from Picture This Plus, or I guess they call it hanging thread retail. Let me just bring the camera a scotch closer so y'all will be able to see my see the detail in the cross stitches. So let me just jump right in. I will share my finished object with you first. I started this right before Easter, finished it right after Easter. I don't know the specific dates. This is for the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Memorial Quilt Project that is going on Facebook. It actually came from a group called Rainbows for Peace and Comfort, which this lovely man named Tim Johnson, who lives out west, he's a flight attendant for Southwest, but I think he's either in Nevada or California, somewhere out there. He was moved to start this group after the Pulse nightclub shooting. I may have already actually discussed this in my previous video, so if I did, pardon me for repeating myself. But then, of course, with all the other shooting tragedies that happened since the Pulse nightclub shooting, he just kept the group going. And people jumped in and would volunteer to stitch squares that would eventually be made into quilts for the families of the victims. So this one is the Peace Dove. And this one was designed by a lady in the UK who designed it initially to be stitched for the Pulse nightclub shooting victims. I used a DMC 4510, which is a real pretty, let me see if I can increase the light without blinding you there. I'm still getting used to actually having decent light now. I hadn't for so long that now I'm just like blown away by having decent light. But if you can tell, this is a mixture of like a mauve, dark blue, and teal is basically the three predominant colors. So this one I just need to iron and it's ready to go. I'll be mailing them to a lady in Florida who will get them to the quilters. Now the only caveat when you stitch for a charity quilt, like especially with this group, is that it has to be a 9" by 9" square of 14 count Aida, because first of all, that they use 9 squares in each quilt, so that gives a nice size quilt. Second of all, it has to be Aida because these quilts are going to be used, and linen and even weave might be a little too fragile. And third of all, you're only supposed to use DMC threads because again, these are going to be used, loved, washed, and you know, specialty threads aren't always color fast, but DMC is, so they can wash these quilts and not worry about them getting messed up if you use the Aida and you use regular cross stitch thread. Now the next one I'm going to do is an origami peace crane. I'm working on it now, and so far it's headless. I started with the wings, so it still needs a head. It's about halfway done, I guess. This one darn near gave me a heart attack because I was stupid enough one morning to try to be drinking coffee while I was stitching, and I actually spilled coffee on it, But I quickly, thankfully, I had cleaned the kitchen the night before, so I had an empty sink, ran over to the sink, filled it with cool water and just dish soap. And I happen to have a product called Amadex, which I originally bought to help me get ink stains out of things when I was new to fountain pens or new to bottled ink. That worked really well and took all the coffee out of it, so you can't even tell. You can't even see now where the coffee was. Thank God, because I had a lot of this done and I was upset with myself. So needless to say, my coffee this morning, my second cup, heart-to-heart fans will know why I'll never have a third, but my second cup of coffee is over here away from me on a TV tray. But anyway, this is as far as I've gotten with the piece crane. But you can see my, the way I'm doing this is I'm stitching the outline and then just filling it in. It seems like that's almost a quicker way to do it, because then, I mean, counting every line, I think if I counted every single line, it would just be too easy to make a mistake. But if I put the outline in and then I stitch in, fill in the rest of it, it seems to go a little faster and less room for error, I think. I don't know if that's the case, but anyway. So I need to finish that one. That one won't take me too long. Hopefully I can get that one done by the end of the weekend, so that I can iron them and mail them to the lady in Florida. Now, I was actually doing some housework the other day. Imagine that. I mean, quarantine, I actually get some housework done. I haven't really done as much housework as I need to, but, you know, housework and me don't get along on a regular basis anyway. I have a cute Lizzie Kate pattern that I'm going to stitch one day and get framed for myself that says, housework never killed anybody, but why take a chance? So yeah, I was straightening up things the other day and I came across this little bag and I was like, I didn't know what I had put in it. And I looked and I found cross stitch and I was like, okay, when did I do this? Well, it turns out I started this in the fall of 2018 and I should have had it done in like maybe a couple weeks at the most, because it's not a big project. But I guess I never went back to it after I started it. This is the JBW Designs Patriotic ABCs. And it's not, you can see, it's not a very detail-oriented piece. So I should have had this done 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. But I think I forgot I started it. And I am stitching it on 32 count Mars Dust, which was a named piece from Hand Dyed by Rolanda. She doesn't usually name her pieces, but this one she did. And when I got it out, I had stitched the flag, the trumpet, and the letters in the other flag. So yesterday I put the E in, I did the house here, did the letter, the A here, and then if you can see that little tiny blue square, that is the start of a flag there for a flagpole. So I did all of this in about 2 hours. So, needless to say, I should have had this one done. So, I just piddled with this one a little bit. I really like the fabric. I know it was a slice of fabric from a larger piece I had. I can't remember what I used the other part of it for. But there's that. So, if I just sit down and put some time in on this, I'll have this one done soon. But like I said, I found it and I forgot that I had done it. That's the problem with not being able to be a monogamous stitcher, is you kind of forget what you're doing and don't get back to things. One that I was working on this morning before I decided to film, because I was waiting for the mail to come, hoping I'd get the fabric, which I did. I haven't really worked a lot on this one, but this is my Long Dog Rain Dance sampler. You can see how I'm working this up with stitching the black parts first, and then I'll go back and fill in the other colors after I finish the outlines. Last time I needed to fill in those two parts of the tail feather of the Thunderbird, and now I'm stitching the body. And you can see I'm just doing all the black outlines, and then once I get that done, all this part will have different colors in it. So like I said, I haven't done much. I did this morning in about 20 minutes while I was waiting for my husband to take a shower before we had breakfast. So yeah, and like I said, this is an 18 count fat half of toasted almond Ada from, I believe, Hand Dyed by Stephanie. But yeah, you can see I didn't really work a whole lot on this one, and it's because I got distracted by the next two things I'm going to show you here. I am easily, it's a wonder that I ever stitched anything monogamously, but the piece for Ms. Powers I did. I don't know, it was because I was single-minded of purpose on that one. So these are the two pieces that have absolutely stolen my focus from anything else in my stash, including the monster stitch along, including all the other 25,000 things I've got going on. Queen of Freedom is coming along very, very nicely. I actually pulled her out yesterday and worked on her for probably a total of maybe 5 hours because I worked on her. I got pissed off. Bill had to work yesterday. Now, you would think with football grinding to a halt that he would be non-essential personnel, being the videographer, but sadly, the coaches are bored, ergo Bill has to work. I guess the thing, and I can't really fault them because nobody knows what's going to happen with the upcoming season, if we're even going to have it, or if, I mean, it all depends. Just another reason this whole COVID thing has pissed me off. But anyway, so he had to work yesterday, and I pulled Queen of Freedom out, worked on her while he was at work. And then last night, after he fixed dinner for us, and we took a nice walk, and I guess I worked on it for like maybe 2.5 hours. So I worked on this probably for a grand total of almost 5 hours yesterday. She's coming along really nicely. And with this fabric, it's a quick stitch. It's turning into a really quick, I mean, it's not quick because it's big, but it's quick when you sit down and you start stitching. You can see I've gotten a lot done from the last time I showed you. I stitched in all this white, one of the stripes in her dress. I added this bit of gray here, and there's going to be another white stripe by the red, but I just haven't started putting it in yet because I wanted to get the top part, because eventually this will all just be fill stitch. And then you see where I worked on this stripe, which is actually part of the flag that's draped across her lap. And you can see again how I'm doing, like I do the outline, and I double count it to make sure I've got the outline right, and then I just go and fill in. So I've actually made a lot of progress on this since the last time I showed you. Still totally in love with this piece, still absolutely just over the moon about the fabric, we the people. Especially with everything that's been going on recently and the threats to our democracy, it's like perfect time to stitch her. I mean, maybe it's just serendipity that I forgot that I had done her, and then I had this fabric and restarted her a few weeks ago because, if I was going to monogamously stitch one piece in my stash to kind of have a corona finish, as some stitchers are calling their big pieces, it would be this one. And I may continue to focus on her. But like I said, about 4.5, 5 hours worth of work yesterday, so but when I stitch this one, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like a joy to stitch. The only problem I have is because this piece of fabric is so big, I don't have a stitching frame or like a lap stand or whatever they call it, and because I don't have room to store one in my apartment, so I use a hoop. And my biggest hoop I have was one that my biggest hoop is right here, is the one that I'm using. And it was one that I bought years ago when I was stitching I was cross-stitching baby quilts for my niece and nephew. So this is a 10-inch hoop. I could get a 12-inch, but that would probably be a bit... This one is hard enough to hold, because if you can see, like, the further down in this I go, the more fabric I have to wrangle up top. So it makes it interesting, but I'm never going to stitch with a lap stand, so that's that's the only, wrangling the fabric is the only, which I think was why the first time I stitched this, I was trying to stitch it on 36 count with aging eyeballs and bad light. So yeah, I think that's why it didn't work out so well the first time. But, I'm making it work, and she's fun. She's going to be gorgeous. She's going to have gold braid and beads. And to me, she reminds me of one of those classical Greek sculptures, because she's got the olive branch crown, and She's so regal, and she's sitting there, and she's got the flag draped across her. Like I said, she's my favorite. But the one piece that absolutely hijacked the living hell out of my progress, because I got single-minded of purpose when I was stitching this, is one that I'm dedicating to Stephanie Powers. Again, because for those of you who follow me on Facebook, you saw my post of her tweet back in early April, where she was, you know, just something to try to keep the fans smiling and happy. And she posted about how at her house the lack of toilet paper has caused them to start using cocktail napkins, and that the napkin of choice, the unanimous favorite, was one that said "Hello Sunshine," which I don't know why that hit me so hard. I think it was maybe because it was just hilarious to think about "Hello Sunshine" being associated with toilet paper, and it was her delivery of it too, because she is so freaking funny. People don't realize that about her, but she has a wicked sense of humor. So I got to laughing about it, and then Bill was like, you know, you could stitch that, couldn't you? And I was like, oh, I'm sure there's "Hello Sunshine" patterns all over the place, because it's kind of a common phrase, right? So I went on to Etsy, and I found this pattern from Happiness ST, capital H, all one word. And so I started stitching it. I'm stitching it on 32 count Picture This Plus Solar, which I originally bought a fat quarter of that, and I was going to do a piece from V for Vendetta, which I actually may pull that back out, given everything that we've had go on in our country lately. And it's the Clouds Factory V for Vendetta pattern that says people shouldn't fear their governments should fear their people. I mean, the thing that I like about the character of V, not to get off too much on a tangent, is that he's kind of apolitical, because his message can be used by either side. I mean, I'm a conservative. I make no bones about that, and if that turns people off and makes people not want to watch me, okay, fine. And if you watched the movie V, you know that the Wachowski, well, they're the Wachowski sisters now. They, Lana, and I can't remember her sister's name, but they're very socially left. And the bad guy that John Hurt played in that movie, the prime minister, was supposed to be George Bush. So you can take V's message whichever side you want to. So I may pull that one out and stitch that one again, just because, you know, the times kind of require it. But so that's why I originally bought this solar fabric. But here's Hello Sunshine from Happiness ST. I love the fabric. The fabric is just great. It's called solar, so I figured it was perfect for this one. The light is making these colors look a lot more intense than they actually are, but I just love typography and cross stitch. It's funny, I don't think I would ever want to just sit and do a sampler of just the alphabet, because to me, I've always felt like, and I'm kind of changing my tune, because I've seen a lot of really gorgeous reproduction samplers that, you know, they have very elaborate images in them too. But when I started out stitching, I thought, well, I don't know about samplers, because they seem boring, just stitching out letters. But I've gotten to where I really like typography, and that might come from the fact that I use fountain pens and I like calligraphy, and I love the way words look written out in fancy fonts and things. But I just love the lettering in this one. I did change up a couple of the colors, because the blue in the H was supposed to have a lighter blue shadow there, but I couldn't see any difference between the threads when I stitched it the way it was called for. So I just got out ecru and just stitched it that way. I was afraid the orange wasn't going to show up, but it works fine. I think my favorite letter in this one so far is the cursive S that connects through to the N. Although I like that E too. So yeah, I'm gonna finish this, and eventually, if we ever get our lives back, I will get to my framer and have this framed, and hopefully, if there's ever another chance at a Hollywood show, I can give this to Ms. Powers in person and just thank her for keeping us smiling during all this craziness. Because she's the only celebrity I've seen interact with her fans in a way that isn't preachy, like Madonna sitting her ass in the tub full of rose petals telling us how we need to pull together. It's like, that's easy for you to say in your McMansion with all the money you've got, lady. When you're like me and you don't know where your next buck is coming from because you were working temporary work before this all hit the fan, and if you don't get paid if you don't work. When you can relate to that, please tell me. But you know, Stephanie was great. She wasn't lecturing or anything. She was just giving us something to smile about, trying to lighten the mood and help us through all this. So if it ever happens, I plan to get that framed and give it to her as just a thank you for her sense of humor in these times. I'm sorry, I've just had it. I shouldn't politicize. I'm bored as hell. I'm broke as hell, and I want my life back. That's all I'm going to say. And maybe I shouldn't have had the second cup of coffee. Although when I'm working, I usually have 2 cups of coffee a day, so it's really not, as drastic as it seems. All right, folks. Some haul, and like I said, some of this is old haul that I forgot I had. First up is a lot of the stitching community. The designers have been making free patterns for their fans to help us through, to help us have something to work on while we're in quarantine. And Karen Kluba is no different. Rosewood Manor. She's one of my favorites. I never used to have favorite designers, and then I started stitching Rosewood Manor and Carolyn Manning Designs. I'm like obsessed. She's been putting out so many things because she has more time on her hands now to design. So she's been I like one of everything, and it's like, oh my God, no, I can't live to be 1,000. Which is what I'm going to have to live to be just to stitch all her patterns anyway. But so Karen Kluba designed this. Her note says, I designed this mini chart in support of the needlework industry during these crazy times. Stay safe and healthy and enjoy. If you want it, all you have to do is email Karen at rosewoodxstitch.com and she'll send you a copy of it. And she encourages you to share it with as many people as you want to. But I love it. It says, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade and stitch. And she gives you the alphabet to put your initials in there. I just love this. I mean, it's so pretty, and it was sweet of her to design this for us. So I got that, and I also sent it to my mom, who, by the way, random tangent, shout out to my mother. She's the one who taught me how to stitch almost 30 years ago, and she had gotten away from it, and for the longest time I tried to talk her into getting back into it. And she's like, oh, I'm too old now, my eyesight's not that good. And I'm like, well, you could stitch on 14 count, you'd be fine. So finally the quarantine got to her enough that she's taken up stitching again. And she is working on, you can find it at 123 Stitch. It's a cooler design studio pattern designed by Nancy Rossi called it's Cottage Garden. And it looks amazing. And she's doing great. And she feels intimidated. And I feel bad because I think in a way she almost feels intimidated by me. Because she keeps telling me, well, I taught you, but you've surpassed everything I've ever done. And I don't want her to feel that way. So I did put out a post on my Facebook page calling for all my friends to give a shout out to my mom. And they were great. They really came through and supported her. And I think it's fantastic. But yes, I did send this one to my mother. I don't know if she's going to stitch that one. She's just trying to get her sea legs back with stitching, but she'll be fine. So another pattern that I just bought that I'm waiting on my threads because I knew I didn't have the thread I needed for this, despite the fact that I've got like every skein of thread I've ever bought that I could keep. The Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. They're such adorable patterns. Oh my God, I love their stuff so much. So they started on the 15th a Chinese Zodiac stitch along, and I love their patterns. So adorable. So every 15th of the month between this month and November, we'll get a part of the pattern. And the first part came out, and as soon as I get my supplies, I'm going to do it. The first part is the center, which has a traditional Chinese knot, which you've seen if you've ever gone to a Chinese restaurant. Those lovely, they almost look like the Chinese versions of the Mexican God's eyes. You know, they're the diamond-shaped ornament type things with the tassels, real beautiful. So there's a traditional Chinese knot in the middle, and the first three signs of the Chinese zodiac, the rat, the ox, and the tiger. So this is the first part. 2020 is the year of the rat, which may be more appropriate than we thought. And then there's the ox and the tiger. Well, guess which zodiac signs my husband and I are? Because the Chinese zodiac does not go by month. It goes by year in 12-year increments. 1973 was year of the ox. 74 was year of the tiger. So these are our zodiac symbols first off. So that's going to be cool. I think what I'm going to do, because I researched the members of my family for the Chinese zodiac, I might just put the dates, the years, next to the ones that relate to our family to kind of personalize it. I think I'm going to do that. And I looked, and like I said, my husband being 73, he was year of the ox. I'm year of the tiger, so that's pretty awesome. My sister is 76, year of the dragon. My dad, 1946, year of the dog. He also shares that with my brother-in-law, who was born in 1970. My mother, 1947, year of the pig. My nephew, Andrew, 2004, was year of the monkey. Now, this is cool. 1945, 2005, and 2017 were all year of the rooster. So that covers my mother-in-law, Betty, my niece, Eliza, and my goddaughter, CJ. And my father-in-law, 1942, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, he shares a birthday and is the same age as Stephanie Powers. 1942 was year of the horse, which if you know anything about Stephanie, that was the genius year for her to be born in. But not only Stephanie, but Robert Wagner and William Holden were year of the horse too. So my father-in-law shares his Chinese zodiac with William Holden, Robert Wagner, and Stephanie Powers, year of the horse. So I thought that was pretty awesome. But anyway, so these are going to be, and I'm thinking I'll put 2020 above the, maybe what I'll do is put it above the head of the, put 2020, 1973, 1974, so that I can kind of personalize it. So that one will be cool, and I would have started it already if I had my fabric, but it only calls for a fat eighth, which I think is great. So I have my fabric now, but I'm waiting for my thread to come. Because like I said, I could have 25,000 skeins of thread, and there's always the handful of ones I need that I don't have. Okay, and I'm coming in at 28 minutes so far. This is shorter, but I can't vouch for the fact that it'll stay short. One of the Flosstube groups I watch and absolutely adore are the Sunshine Stitchers. Sheila, EJ, and Gary from Florida. And they had a dear friend, a mutual dear friend, who passed away earlier this year. And I think By the Bay Needle Arts was one of her favorite designers. And they've been showing By the Bay Needle Art pieces that they're doing as kind of an informal stitch along as a tribute to her. So I found them interesting, and I thought they were really pretty, especially the Blueberry Hill pattern that Sheila is doing. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll check out By the Bay Needle Art. There's, well, I didn't intend to buy all these patterns. And I've actually got another one coming, which I'll explain here in a second. But the first one that really caught my eye is, now this lady, Donna Bayless, the designer and owner of By the Bay Needle Art, she is in Maine. So her pieces all have a very colonial feel to them, which I actually recently have found myself really liking. I know I've said before that I really love the concept of stitching houses, even though I never have. So this piece is going to change that. This is called Christmas Cove. And I love this piece. Well, let me just take it out because you're never going to see it with the glare on the plastic, even though I'm going to keep them all in this. That's better. Although it's not really, because that's a glossy photograph. But anyway, you can see that it's there's an angel up here. And I don't think she really shows up as well on the fabric that they used. It's a very neutral fabric. Trying to see if they list. Model stitched on 28 count natural brown linen from Weichelt Imports. I'm going to stitch it on a darker piece simply to help the angel and the stars and the snow stand out more. But I love these houses, and they're on the bay, and you see the boat out there. I just love this. And what drew me to this is the holly tree, because it reminds me of when I lived at home and my dad and I would string lights for Christmas. There was a holly tree that he always put lights in, and it was tall enough at one time that he had to use like garden tools to, you know, get the higher branches. And one of my favorite memories of the last Christmas I spent at home before I got married was we were out, I was wearing shorts, and we were out putting lights in the Christmas tree, and then a week later there was a massive ice storm over Christmas. But I really love that, and I'm going to stitch it on something darker just so everything shows up better. This one does have some Mill Hill beads, and 1 week's dye works blue spruce, but the rest is all charted for DMC, so that's good. And so that one was the first one I found. And then I found this, and this is why I have one more order coming, because I just thought of this after I saw these in person. She did these little patterns called Stitch an Inch, and Stitch designs as separate tiny 1-inch treasures, because I believe on her website she sells little pendants you can make. So she designed these like you could make the pendants, or you can stitch them all together in a long strip. I was intrigued by these because I've got so many big pieces going on right now. I thought it might be nice, you know, if I ever do get back to work. I do like to stitch on my lunch break, so this would be something small I could take that's really portable and nice to work on. The blocks are 28 squares by 28 squares, so they're just they're just 2 inch by 2 inch on 14 count. So the stitch count for all the blocks together is 28 by 196. Mine would be a little bit bigger, because what I plan to do is I plan to put these, I got all the seasons except spring, which is on its way. But what I plan to do is do 8 square strips and do a seasonal sampler: winter, spring, summer, and fall. Each pattern has a bonus chart. Like this one has an owl. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll do the owl, I'll do the houses, and then the owl at the end. That'll be the winter part. Then I'll skip a certain number of squares and start the next strip, which would be the spring one that I don't have. I'll do the same thing with the summer one. I'll use the lobster on either end and then stitch the... I really love the summer one. And then I'll put in the fall one. Now the fall one actually will end up with an extra square if I do it with the bonus square being the first and the last one. So I've decided I don't really like that house that much. So I'll just do the leaves, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then another leaf at the end for the 8th one. But that's what I plan to do with those. So yeah, I didn't mean to get enabled. I'm just easily influenced, I suppose. But it's By the Bay Needle Arts, and she is on Etsy. So there's that. Now some other patterns. I was actually looking, I was looking for this one because I thought I had downloaded it already, and my husband was like, well, if you ordered it on Etsy, can't you just go re-download it? Which I can. So, long story short, I'm a pen pal with a 9-year-old art student in Texas, and his parents are big artists and all that. So I thought what I would do is I thought I would stitch the Hug Sandwich Bob Ross and put that in a card for him. So I was looking for this pattern, and I had to go back to my Etsy downloads and you know, so yeah, this will be a card to my little, his name is Johannes. Sweet kid. So I was looking for that one, but then I forgot that I had these. Now, these were downloads that I had forgotten I had from other places. These are not from Etsy. Heaven and Earth Designs. I got enabled by this one. Now, this one on 25 count fabric would actually be a 10 by 7, so that's not that big compared to some of the multi-millions of stitches. This one would only be 250 stitches wide by 175 high, which for a Haid Heaven and Earth Designs pattern is actually quite small. But you can see why I fell in love with that. But believe it or not, for a 10 by 7, this is going to have 88 colors in it. I love that, though. I am so enamored with dragons, as you heard me talk in my last video. This video may turn 35 minutes. I'm doing okay. Then I just mentioned Carolyn Manning being one of my favorite designers. Well, this pattern was one that I had apparently ordered from her and downloaded a while ago and forgot I had it. So I found this in my download folder on the computer as well. This is Jane's Joy, and it's called Petals, and it's just a giant patchwork of different flowers. Now, for those of you who've seen my Facebook page and seen the heart that I cross-stitched, my heart is full of flowers, that I did for my 20th anniversary last year. She's the designer of that one, and she does a lot with flowers, and I just fell in love with this. I absolutely freaking stinking adore this patchwork flower with the bees in the center, with the bee in the center and the long stem. This part here, that's like my absolute favorite right there. But I absolutely adore her floral stuff. Now she's designing trees, and I'm like, shoot, lady, you had to design trees, right? Because you know I love trees. Anyway, but so I found this one in my download folder on my computer too. So technically not new stash, but newish because I forgot that I had ordered that one. All right, let me see if I can wrap this up in under an hour, not like I did last time. So I got my Picture This Plus fabric that I ordered. They very rarely do fat eighth sales. I think they have one a year. An eighth of a yard of fabric is 13 by 18. And you know, as many big pieces as I have, and big pieces of fabric I have in my fabric basket, you need some little pieces, because not everything's going to be what is referred to in the stitching community as a BAP, a big-ass piece. Although I feel like I'm stitching nothing but big-ass pieces, except for the ones for the charity quilt lately, but that's just me. So every once in a while, they do. Now, they don't sell fat eighths on their site as a general rule. You can get a fat half, fat quarter, or a full yard of fabric, which I can see why they don't, because most people want a big, like especially if you're planning a big piece, you need the big fabric, but also, you can take a fat half of fabric and get 3 or 4 smaller pieces out of it. So I understand why as a general rule they don't sell these, but every year they have a fat eighth sale, and the thing that's nice about the sale is they already have the fabric dyed, so you don't have to wait for it. Normally, if you order fabric of any size or any count or any style, you have to wait. It takes about 4 weeks to get fabric from them because they dye to order. They don't just dye up a bunch of fabric and hope for the best. So, but these are already dyed. These are packaged, ready to go. I think they had something like 12,000 fat eighths this year. I'm sure they probably sold most of them on a reduced price. So that's really helpful. I got 4 pieces. Now this one, I've always wanted to try this color. It's called Aurora, and I got it on a 28 count linen. Now, it's actually not quite that blood red. Like I said, my new light, because it's natural lighting, it makes all the colors pop. This one is more of kind of a tomato red. I'm sure it looks much brighter on camera than, but I'm not sure what I'll stitch on it, but it's a pretty color. It's really like a orangey red. It's real pretty. So that's Aurora. And then I bought 2 pieces of 28 count Tango, because what I plan to do for myself, I plan to, this is kind of a mauve-y purple, more mauve than purple, I would say. What I plan to do is I plan to stitch Hello Sunshine for myself, and then as an aside, my husband, we were trying to find toilet paper and we couldn't at either grocery store or our 7-Eleven. So we went to our convenience store that's down the street, and he bought these little pocket packs of Kleenex. But what he didn't realize was they had little pithy sayings on them. So it was kind of my version of cocktail napkins. And there was one that said, "Seize this moment." And I'm like, if we have to seize the moment when we go to the bathroom, that's not good. So I actually charted up "Seize this moment," and I plan to stitch Hello Sunshine and "Seize this moment" and get them framed and hang them in my bathroom. So that's why I got 2 pieces of the same fabric. So that's Tango. And then this one is real pretty. This one is Charm, and it's kind of like an antique pink. And this is also a 28 count linen. It's coming across kind of brownish, but it's really kind of like an antique rose color. And I know I should just give up on I don't like pink crap, because seriously, I like mauve. Mauve isn't pink. Magenta isn't pink. Well, they are, but they're not like, you know what I mean, like bubblegum pink. And then the last piece I bought was just a fun one. I don't have any clue what I'll stitch on this. This is a 32 count Belfast Parfait, which I have used the Parfait colorway before, but never in the crystal. And this is the opalescent. I don't know if you can see it very well. Yeah, you can see the sparkles. This one is kind of it's a medium yellow, and it's got some peachy, orangey pieces in it. And I don't usually use opalescent fabric, so I have no idea what I'm actually going to use it for, but something whimsical. I'm sure there'll be some reason to have that in my stash. So I'm actually coming in at 42 minutes. I'm actually 10 minutes less long-winded than I was last time. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to be back in another few weeks with more progress than I have had this week. But like I said, Hello Sunshine kind of took over everything else. So hopefully I'll get some more work done on Queen of Freedom, Rain Dance. Hopefully I can finish that little patriotic piece, the little patriotic lettering piece. And hopefully by the time I see you again, I will have had a haircut. I'm going on nearly 70 days without a haircut, which is why I'm wearing the hoodie. It's not particularly cold in here right now. I'm just trying to cover up the multitude of sins that are going on all in here. So until next time, I wish you happy stitching and a happy life, and I'll see you soon.